Okay guys, so I wanted to show you how to put a chain on an Echo cs400 and actually how to investigate a correction of a problem with the chain. I have a couple of these. One of them I picked up on an online marketplace for a pretty good price, but the problems I've been having is the Echo 400 throws this chain all the time when I'm out cutting brush or cutting little limbs off of trees, getting ready to cut down a tree, or if I'm cutting down little cedars around a big oak tree. And so they throw their blades all the time. And so I brought both of these in after throwing them out in the field. I didn't feel like putting the blade back on when I was out there in the field. So what I do is I'm just going to take off the chain and clean around. Every time I take the chain off one of these chainsaws, whether it's a Husqvarna or a Steel or an Echo, I always want to clean around the area of the chain and kind of do a little clean up, tidy up, and then I always fuel and put the bar oil in whenever I do a little cleanup. I have my system over there where I do sharpen chains, but these have been sharpened really fairly recently, and I only ran them a few minutes each before the chains fell off out on the land. So what I do is I'm taking both of the screws off. I always lay everything in a fairly tidy order when I'm doing this, and I'm going to tap this up. I always bring my trusty shop vac over while I'm doing this because a tidy creek or something like that, but I'm a small operation just out of my garage. So tap this off. I'm going to clean it up in a little bit. I always want to clean around the chain brake and clean around the tightener area where the lube comes in. Clean it up a little bit. Set that over there. Now see, I must have been down close to ground with this one because there's a bunch of grass and such. And so I'm going to take the chain off. Look over the chain. This one's been sharpened a few times on the machine, so maybe it has a limited life left. It's an Oregon blade, actually. Pretty decent blade. But for the time being. Okay, so I'll take the bar off. I always want to clean it up a little bit. I've got a grease gun to grease the zerk right there on the saw. Give it a once over, make sure it's all straight. That looks pretty good. Lay it back there. I always like to clean out the area around the chain. Like I say, this is the first saw that I got last summer after we had a windstorm come through the community, and so I liked it well enough. I bought another one, then I went shopping at a pawn shop and got a couple more of different type, different brand of chainsaws. So I put the blade back on. I'm going to get ready to reinstall the blade, but I'm going to loosen the blade sharpener. I'm saying chain sharpener, loosen it a couple times so when I put it back on, it'll match up with the alignment hole in the chain bar. Okay. Now I just want to get the chain and put it back on correctly. So what I think it is with these Echo chainsaws is that if you get just the slightest little kink in the chain, when you're cutting at different angles and cutting quickly and moving the saw around, what I think is the saw will throw a chain, and obviously these chains have been through a little bit. just want to put it back on, put the chain around the sprocket first. After I've cleaned off the chain bar, get it on there. I want to pull it tight. Now, of course, I want to line it up first. Now, when I pull this, I want to pull it before I put the chain cover back on to make sure it spins okay. And it seems like it is spinning okay. The one I just did right next to it, it had a little bit of a tough spot in one spot where I pulled the chain. And that means I've probably nicked up the blade a little bit or messed up with one of its links. So we want to put it back on there like that. I'm going to tighten the screws back on. Just loosely put them on first. And then I will do a little adjustments and then tighten them down a little bit more. So the other thing is, if you sharpen these blades, and they have a certain lifespan, and that's true. So I'm getting to the end of the blades because the flexibility between the links, I think, has something to do with how accurate or how long the chain stays on the saw. Okay, so now I've hand tightened both of these screws. I'm going to tighten just a little bit more before I do the final adjustment on the blade. Okay, so on these, I want to make sure that the chain spins. It does. Then I want to get ready to tighten it. That's way too loose. Okay, so I have my set screws or set nuts marginally tightened. Now I want to come in here and tighten up the chain. So I'm going to turn it a quarter at a time, half at a time. Notice there it's snugged up pretty good. Still a little bit loose. Still a little bit loose. Now I'm going to just tighten a little bit on the tightening nuts and check one more time. Yeah, that's about as snug as I want. Now some people may want them a little snugger, but I want to make sure that I spin the chain and there, see, it needs a little tightened. It probably came loose a little bit. Okay, I like the feel of that one. So now I'm going to tighten these down, snug them down. Some people say you should torque these a certain amount, and I just torque them and just snug them. Another quarter of a turn, maybe a third of a turn. That's pretty tight. All right, so set that one aside. Put that one over here. Again, it spins a little bit better. Tighten these set screws down a little bit more. I think I can make a little video a little later when I find out more exactly what makes these Echo 400 throw their chains so often. But anyway, so now I'm going to tighten the chain tightening screw. It was pretty loose on this one. Okay, that's because when I put the chain back on, I always push the bar for as closest to the sprocket as I can. Now see, this one turns okay, and then right there it gets to a little stick point. And that's one of the links in the chain, I think, is the problem there. So it's just going. That's pretty good. Let me just snug it another quarter of a turn. And there you have it. Tighten her down. Tighten her down. And just give it one more little snug after we get about a quarter turn. So there you have it, tightening up the chainsaw, making it work.